So when is it time to do a brand refresh? So to answer that question, I have with me Dave Korinek, who is the Chief Brand Officer at Pearl Resourcing. And we're here at the ECRM Beauty and Cough and Cold session in Dallas. So Dave, thank you so much for joining us. And before we get into that question, talk about what are the elements that make for effective CPG branding.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think it's really important that effective branding to me is you got to really understand the category and the shelf that you're on. You got to most importantly understand your audience and what they want to hear from you. So when I think of effective branding in a category, I think of somebody that is your target audience that walks up and says, I need that product. I mean, literally, it's like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, do I want this product? Because there is such a sea of sameness on the shelf. And a lot of people are hearing the same things like, oh, let's get a clean label. Let's get this, let's get that. But I think really good packaging and branding design for products in this category and in most categories in CPG have done their research. They understand what the audience is looking for, what they want to hear and what they want to see. And you know kind of what age range they are, right? Am I talking to moms? Am I talking to like young Gen Zs? Or who am I talking to? And then you got to capture their attention. I think good branding on a shelf is about that 20-foot, 30-foot view, like something that either draws me in enough to get over there a little closer and pick up a package.
Visually.
So visually has to like tap. So, but if I walk up and I see like all of these things that look exactly the same, it's the one that stands out, like Seth Godin, The Purple Cow in the mix. If you haven't read that book, please read it. It changed my life. But it is really about just making a difference on the shelf and standing out in a crowd of crowded space, right?
Gotcha. And branding itself, the term branding, it's kind of ethereal. It encompasses a lot of things that go beyond just the physical appearance and stuff. What are some of those elements when somebody talks about branding? I'm a branding guy. These are the things.
Yeah, I think it gets misinterpreted or misconstrued a lot of times of what branding is. Oh, it's my logo. Like, no, that's like just the like handshake of a brand, right? Branding is the ethos of everything, right? It's your tone of voice. It's how you interact with customers. It's how you deal with a situation on a product that was purchased and did you respond a certain way? It's the people you put in. It's the salespeople you put in front of people. Branding is everything,
and the actions, right? The actions that you take, and the trust that you build. So
100%. I like to say branding is really it's that indelible mark you leave behind when you're not in the room. So if I'm in here and I'm a brand and I do my thing, and then somebody walks in and walks out, it's what they take with them out the door. Even the unboxing process is part of a brand. If it's thoughtful, like Apple's done a great job of thoughtful design. Manscaped, great job of like how you open it up and how fun it is and interactive. I think if you need to think about every level of it. Think about your brand like the consumer of your brand, and think about all the little bells and whistles and surprise and delights you can give them to make them remember you.
And the key is keeping it consistent across all of those elements.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I've seen way too many really good products have terrible branding and never do as well as they could. And I see brands that have great marketing, great branding, and they aren't a great product and they do well. So I think it's that mix of like, if you can get the win-win of great product, branded and marketed properly, that's a win-win.
Gotcha. So you've been here for a couple of days, taking meetings, engaging with brands, and what are some of the indicators that if I'm a brand owner, maybe I'm new, I came out with my first shot at it, but when do I know that, hey, it's time for a refresh?
Gotcha. Yeah, listen, I look at when I walk around, I walk the floor and I look at the different brands and I listen to people talk. What I'm looking for is clarity. I think clarity around who they know, who they are. Are they speaking the right language to that consumer or that product? Do they just have a product that they're just explaining? It's like, I like to look at it like this way. It's are you selling me the recipe, or are you selling me like the chef, the way the chef talks about a dish? The chef goes, oh, let me sell you 2 different kinds of food. Here's the recipe for it. It's pasta, it's marinara sauce, it's some meatballs and whatever. Or I say, listen, I'd like to make you this meal that my parents have been making and my grandparents, it's a generation. And I go back to the beginning and I start talking about how we make the meatballs. there's a story behind this that
Yeah.
makes you more, I'm going to gravitate to that more as a brand. So when I'm walking around, I'm looking for people that have more than just a product. It is so much more than beyond the, when a retailer sits down, they're probably looking at you saying, are they ready for retail? Like, are they like, it's like, have they been pressure tested, and can I put them on the shelf, and will they sell? If you can present yourself in a way that makes it sound better, like you understand their market, like you don't need to give them so much data because they know it all already. You say, I know the data, I've learned enough. Here's my story. Here's why this product fits for that. And here's why I think it will sell well in the market. But if you have a really clear story and a clear visual story that goes with it, then I look at them like, hey, thumbs up. But if you're not, and you're hearing like feedback from the, just people, or, look, ECRM, all the team, you guys walk around, talk to people, you see a lot, I know you give people pointers and talk to them and ask them questions. The retailers are doing the same. And so if you're hearing a lot of questions about your brand that you don't really know the answer to, or you're feeling like, I wish I had a better answer for that, or that didn't go as well as I thought it would, because you're going to get questions that you aren't maybe ready for. But if you don't have those answers right, I would say maybe you need to just step back for a second. I would always recommend anybody's before ECRM, you got to prep. You got to be ready. You got to have your pitch down. It's an elevator pitch. It's like speed dating. So it's like, all right, here's why I did this. Here's what it came up. But if you just only talk about product and product fit, you have to be careful. You have to kind of get me to understand why the demand would be there for a product. And that really goes back to story and brand that's behind it. So few things that I would do before you would come to a show like this is step back, take a look at the shelf that you're going to be on, or the retailers you're going to possibly be meeting with, see what you're up against, and take pictures of it, showcase your brand next to those brands on the shelf. Can it compete? Why does it look better? Or make some changes if you need to, but I would definitely listen. And if you feel like you're getting a lot more questions and you're not really sure of the answers during your little meetings, then maybe it's time to kind of step back and take a look at it, strategize a little bit more about how do I make it better. And those are the brands I think that, we've talked about. Some brands have come in, they asked a lot of questions, then 2 years later, they came back and absolutely crushed it because they listened and they did what kind of gave the retailers perspective and really took it to heart. So
yeah, the feedback is so important. And there's, I think, what you talked about is the story and the product matching. I think that's so important because let's say the example we talked about earlier, you're pitching a buyer and your product you think is a premium product, and then they're assuming it's a discounted product, a value product.
Yeah,
that's an obvious sign.
That's definitely a sign. You're like, I want to sell this to this market, and they're like, great, I think it would be better in this lower, lower price category. You're like, ooh, what am I missing here? Maybe I didn't present the product, the ingredients the right way. Maybe I didn't talk about the story behind how we sourced those ingredients. I mean, I think all of that matters. People, customers or consumers are willing to pay more for brands when they look at those types of things, but you have to sell it to them the right way, or pitch it and tell the story the right way. But if you let someone else, I'll put it this way, very simply, if you let someone else tell your story for you, you're going to get what they think of it. So you need to make sure you're very clear in your storyline so that the narrative is there when a buyer walks away or a consumer walks away, when they start to engage you on social media, when they start to look at your website, consistency across the board, make sure that those themes are there, that, there's no doubt in your mind and theirs what your product's all about.
So based on that, I think a good way to know if you're successful at that is after your meeting, can that buyer explain to their colleagues what your brand's about?
100%.
Like
100%.
And then if they can't, then maybe you didn't get it right. But that leads me to my next question is, what are some, because a retailer may address different markets, or just different retailers in different markets will have different needs, or your branding might need to be adjusted just based on those different markets.
Sure.
What are some good questions as a brand owner coming in? How do I ask, and what questions could I ask the buyer to find out if maybe some changes are needed?
For sure. I mean, the one thing is you're sitting with someone that's likely ahead of a category. They get a lot of data, right? They see the trends, they see what's working and not working, what's selling and not selling. I mean, I'm sure they get that feedback. They probably have internal meetings and talk about it a lot. So if you're sitting with a buyer, use them as a tool set for you to learn more about your category as well. So ask questions about, don't be afraid to ask, what could we do better? Is there something else that when you look at our packaging, does it speak to the audience that you feel like ask some questions. It's an opportunity to intake as well. And I think people lose that sight of that because we're really trying to make a deal. But I think buyers also like the honesty of, hey, like we're really working through this, especially as an emerging brand.
Yeah.
You're trying to like make sure you're right for the category and everything. As you've gotten a little more set in as a brand and you've done all the work to get there, you might be like, oh, I've done all this hard work already to get here. I don't want to make any changes. But I'll just say it's really hard to be in store anyway. And once you get on the shelf, the biggest thing is it's just the beginning. That's the start of the finish line, right? You can start and be out there doing e-com and selling D2C through social. But if you hit the store shelf, you're almost now responsible for moving that product off of the shelf. And that means you're going to have to spend more money marketing and more. So I'm just saying, be aware of the starting line and know that my investment up to that point is all going to be, pushed forward into the marketing ongoing. So even if you have to step back and relook at your brand a little bit to get it right, that's better than like starting out with it wrong. And then your initial perception in the market's wrong. And now you've got to undo that. And a lot of times you don't get two shots at it. It's like, I got one shot to make an impression. And if I do it wrong, I'm in trouble.
Well, I think it's also important, and let me know your thoughts on this, is not to be too attached to the past, like what you have had. Maybe you had this look and feel and story for 5 years, 10 years, but now you got to evolve, right? It's part of it.
Yeah. I think, be self-aware. I think it's important to open yourself up to be willing to listen to criticism, not our criticism or just thoughts or ideas. Take every note. If you're stubborn about it, it doesn't usually help. I mean, I've seen a lot of brands that just stay in their ways and they don't get moving. They don't get the traction they want or the momentum. So I think it's really important. And again, realistically, a lot of these are starting out brands. The emerging brands are going, hey, I'm going to hire a designer. I'm going to tell them what I want. They're going to do it. And again, at that point, there's really no pressure testing as, is the right design? Is this the right thing to do? My recommendation, even before you get into the branding process or in the rebranding process, is to go to the consumer. What I mean by that is I would go in and do like a consumer survey. It's pretty easy to go into a category survey. You can do it online. We have different people that we use for that. We'll scope up the questions. We might even put together a couple of designs and logo idea, whatever it is. And we put it in front of the targeted consumer. Like, oh, I'm going after, Gen Z moms or young up and coming, young mothers with 2 kids or more, great young families. And it's in the health and beauty category. So I'm going to find exactly that audience and I'm going to ask them questions like, what do you care about? What matters most about this packaging? Is the hierarchy of what we're saying, does the promise of the product deliver? And let them answer it, because it's literally who you want to talk to in the store. And I mean, I've literally done this myself in a store. Like, I'll put products on the shelf and then I'll talk to people about it. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Which one of these do you trust the most, or which one stands out to you? And watch them interact with it and talk to me to get real feedback, because it's hard to do that and isolated by yourself or with a small group. But when you're actually talking to consumers, you get real feedback. And I think that to me is super valuable.
Gotcha. And here at the sessions, getting the feedback from buyers is like consumers in the aggregate, right? They're representing them. So we were discussing earlier, there's one brand that came to a pet session years ago, and they were big in Brazil. And what he wanted to do was to just completely revamp their brand for the North American market. And what he did, he had no intentions of making any deals. He just wanted feedback from the 40 or so buyers he met with on his packaging, what he needs to change to adjust, to adapt it to their markets. Then he went back 2 years later, came back with a complete brand refresh, knocked it out of the park. And then you actually worked on Audrey's snacks with and this is something we have covered in the past, but this was the guy behind it. And talk a little bit about that, and because that's a great example. It looks nothing like it did in the past, but it looks so relevant for mass retail.
For sure. Yeah, and I think that was because we sat down with George and Emily and George and I and John, and we all talked through what's our goals for the brand. And in that particular case, we're like, hey, well, we want to compete against like the snack category, like Doritos and Cheetos. And it's like, oh my gosh, they got Chester the Cheetah, and they got it's like active and moving, and like, in the popcorn aisle, we don't want to just fall into what's there. We wanted to really be on that side. So it's like we needed this fun brand. We needed to make some noise with popcorn. And so that was really but we went back to the drawing board. So I would say to anybody, whether you're coming in from another country into the US market, huge problem. You got to make sure you're relevant and make sure it makes sense. You know, a lot of times you look at an ingredient or a product and it's like, people don't even know what that is in the US, right? So you got to make it like something that people can relate to and they understand it. And you can like, you know, Americanize something that's coming from out of country. Vizio is a great example. People thought it was an American brand, and we built that out back in the day. And it was, oh shoot, this is a Chinese brand. Yeah, well, yeah, that's where we manufacture, but we're made in Costa Mesa. You know, that's where we're from. So, but I think that's it. It's perception becomes reality. So, but looking at all that data points, looking at a strategy behind it, and then pushing forward design based on strategy, it changes the game, right? I'm like, to me, it's strategy, you know, strategy without or design without strategy is like just you're throwing things on a wall. You're just trying things because there's a lot of great designers can do a lot of great design. It might look great, but until you've done the strategy, there's some key things there behind it that you should realize and understand prior to designing anything. And I think that becomes the thread for everything you do. So I'm a big fan of laying a good foundation, right? I mean, I think you want to grow a tall tree, you got to have deep roots, and that's where the strategy comes in.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what you did with Audra is from a consumer, viewing it as a consumer, is that you created a packaging design that actually matches how great the popcorn tastes. Because before it, you know, if you just did it based on looks, right? So it's amazing popcorn, and now the new design actually reflects the cheesiness and the bold flavors because you got that bold look. You got the characters on there, and so now it's completely aligned inside and out.
It makes
So where before it kind of didn't do it.
It wasn't doing the product justice.
Yeah, because the product was so good. It was just a clear bag. It wasn't a bad design. It was no design. It was a clear bag.
Exactly.
So now you brought them both up to the same level. So, all right. So now I'm a brand owner. I know that my product, my brand needs a refresh. How do I go about doing it?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, I mean, look, there's a step-by-step process and part of it is, you know, it's, again, I kind of mentioned this earlier in the process of, you know, writing a book about a lot of this, but the first chapter starts with let's get naked. And it's really about like stripping down in front of the mirror and be like, what do we got to work with here? You know, you may not like what you look like or what you see, but I know what I want to do and what I want to look like. So what do I got to do to get there? So getting down to the basis and saying, okay, well, going back to who is my target audience? Am I doing that? Am I messaging it properly? What's my tone of voice? Like, what's my persona? What's my personality? I'm a big fan of brands being like a person, like, you know, really having I call them brand DNAs because I'm trying to give you a soul, not just a package. You know, if you're just a package on a shelf, that's what you're going to be. But my role is really to try to put, you know, and yours as an owner is to put your brand in people's hands. And in order to do that, you need to get them to pick it off the shelf. And so to go back to the beginning, the basis point is like really do some research, go back to the shelf, go back to your audience, look at what's going on, maybe do some consumer survey or something to understand maybe where your product is and where it needs to be. Look at the competitors. You got to do competitive analysis. What are they saying? What are they doing? How are you different? What makes you unique and ownable in the space compared to everybody else? And then find that and hammer it away, right? And really go through that process. Then you can kind of get back to redesigning and keep the mind open to that and look at it that respect. But if you go back and build that strategy again and you look at those pieces, it's one of those things that I do with all my clients is we got to sit down and kind of get back to the basics. Like if you can't explain it to me and I can't articulate it for you, because it's a problem. But I think if a brand owner can sit down and start talking, they know. A lot of times they know. They just don't know how to tell the story. You know, I've worked with engineers and doctors and all this, you know, scientists, people they're trying to figure out how to explain something.
How to get it from
how do you get it out of here?
Their head to somebody else's head.
Like I had a buddy of mine, he was the engineer at that TV company back in the day when I was working with them. And he kept trying to explain to me this new feature. It was like, oh, well, you know, it was talking about all the different pixels and how many this and that. He was like very engineering speak to me. And I'm like, dude, I don't understand. What does that do for me? I'm like, I look at everything like a consumer. So I said, if I walk up to a box and I say, this little icon I'm trying to create for this particular thing is on here, what is it supposed to mean? And finally, after about 10, 15 minutes, he says, well, it makes the blacks blacker and the whites whiter. And I'm like, bingo. That's it, man. Simplified down. Like we've got to find a way to simplify those things down. If you over like try to productize or over like say something about you, sometimes you can get into the spiral of like I'm trying to meet what the industry wants versus what a consumer wants. And so you really want to dive down and get clear and concise. I think right now the consumer, if I was to go into what I see trends wise, like my wife and my daughter-in-law, they look at brands, they want transparency. They want you to speak the honest truth to them. Like, don't code it with all these different things. There's so many icons and things all over everything. It's like, but give them the truth. Talk about your product. Why did you create it? You know, if you're somebody that has a brand that you believe in and there's something about it and why you created it, why you made it for your family or for the, you know, the reason that you created it, it starts to become more real and more ownable in the market. And I think people gravitate towards brands like that. You know, look, we're using influencers, we're doing all the things to get people to it, but if there's really a good story in the background of like, you know what, I developed this soap because I wanted something that didn't mess up my kid's skin when I gave them baths. And here's why I developed this product with natural. Suddenly I'm making this connection back to the recipe thing. It's like, you're telling me about the meal more. And I love that. And I think more people out there want that honesty from brands these days.
And then if you're working with influencers, it's easier for them to understand the story too.
100%.
Because then you don't want that disconnect where the influencer can't get your story straight and all that. So, all right, two more things.
Yes.
One, how do you find a good brand agency to work with? Like, what should they look for? If it's not you, if they're not hiring you guys,
they're not hiring me.
If they're looking for somebody, what do they look for? What are the do's and don'ts of getting a good brand agency?
I would be looking for a branding company that would ask a lot of questions and think about the things I'm asking right now. That isn't going to try to sell you a package of sort of things of just like, I look at brands individually, not as like cookie cutter things. Like there is a process that I would go through with every company or that you should be looking for. But really what you want to do is find your source of truth, which is most important. So make sure the company is going to work with you to develop that source of truth of who your brand is, give it a personality, help you to define a tone of voice, positioning, all that with you, and then can translate that into design as well as then what would you do with it. So when I'm looking for, I want someone that can think of it holistically, you know, but isn't just I'm not just another, you know, cog in the wheel for their business. I think agencies, you know, have a bad rap, you know, and there's I mean, I've seen it. We've worked with people that have had bad experience with agencies, and it's a lot of them out there that maybe don't do exactly what they say.
Or they're not close to your customers and they don't know how to.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would definitely make sure that you have, and I mean, I would say that sometimes it's important to have category experience. Other times it's not. Like, I mean, sometimes people are so good in a category that they do exactly what they did for another brand and you're not unique. They just follow the sort of thing. So, but it's really more about how they think. I would ask a lot of questions and do a comparison. I would ask a few different, you know, branding agencies don't ask them to pitch you ideas, but ask them to tell you how you're going to solve my problem. That's ultimately what I want as a partner. When I look at working with companies, it's like I'm partnering with you on this journey, and I win when you win. I want to be incentivized by the idea of like I got you in store and now you're winning, and guess what? That's the best reaction. So look for success too as well, right? Yeah. Brands other branding agencies that have been successful with other brands, that's a key marker, right? If you see a company that's like, hey, that's not in my category, but they did really well with that brand, they can help me with mine too. So. And and also comfortability. You want people that you feel like you trust and you can work with. I think that's a big one for me. Like I don't do work with people that I don't trust either. You know, like I think a lot of times I hear them talking and I'm like, they're not going to listen to me. You know, they're not going to take this feedback that I'm going to tell them. They're going to want to do their own thing and they're just going to want me to be their designer or creative. And I'm going to say, hey, we're probably not a good fit. Yeah. So you want that synergy where there's good like back and forth, but trust the people you hire to build the brand and let them lead the way for you. But, you know, someone that will work and engage with you the opposite way. You don't want them just saying, well, we'll be back in a few months with everything you need. You want them to be collaborative with you in a way. So I would do that. Listen, evaluate, make sure you have a few in your back pocket to interview. Score them, you know, look at them and score them and say, really great, you know, make a little list of scoring items. Like, I mean, maybe I can send that to you of things I would score an agency on and you can send it out to everybody. Yeah. But here's the things I would look for. And if they hit the highest marks, well, they're probably the right ones for you to try.
Perfect. Well, tell everybody about Pro Resourcing.
Oh man. So Pearl Resourcing, I mean, obviously Emily's been running that for a really long time. I've just recently kind of started helping her out more on the fractional side as the chief brand officer to help her build out these brands. But she's been working with a lot of companies for the last, I mean, I think it's 13 years
Yeah,
now.
food and beauty
And
categories.
snacks and all the good stuff. But I mean, we're not limited, really CPG or just consumer products in general. But really, we do the same thing I'm talking about. We some brands just need to refresh. They need to kind of like pressure test and evaluate. Other brands are like, this isn't working, or I'm trying to get into market. I'm from another country. I need to, be relevant to the U.S. market. And that's kind of so we're really not just your doers. We're the thinkers and the doers. And then Emily's other side of the business, which is start to sold, it's pretty awesome. She's like, if you really want to get your brand to a spot where you're ready to sell it, then that's another thing. So that's not really my world. I like to get them prepped for sale, get you in the right position. So that's what I would say is if you feel like you're not, if your brand's not where it needs to be, talking about brand refresh or just needs to be pressure tested to make sure you can get to that next level and scale. So like I'm ready to get into retail and I just landed Walmart and then your brand falls apart. That means you're probably not ready. That's the kind of stuff that I'm really good at helping people to get to a point of how we build some scalability in the business and the brand. How do we connect with our US audience in a way that makes sense? And then what is the plan of action that we have beyond that? It's not just here's your design and good luck. It's here's some thinking about how to do that. So that's really what Pearl's been doing. And, my history and my agency background as well has been for the last 25 years, has been doing that for a lot of brands. And so, being here in Dallas and working with Emily has been awesome. And that's what we're helping people do. Like our Judas, we're excited about what they did last year and we'll see what happens. There's a lot of retail excitement going on and we'll see what the next year here holds for them. So
awesome. Well, I'm a big fan of them. George and John.
You just like the free popcorn.
Love the free popcorn. I've been getting ever since they redesigned it. I've been getting cases of popcorn. And it's hard not to eat a whole bag.
We're gonna make a character after you.
Okay,
I'm gonna build one for you.
Definitely. It's got to be gesturing somewhere.
Yes, doing something.
Awesome. And they can find you at pearlresourcing.net, right?
Pearlresourcing.net. Yeah, we're on LinkedIn as well.
All over LinkedIn.
Yeah. You can find me at Dave Korinek. He's probably put that on a little bit down here somewhere, with a link. But hit us up. We're happy to chat and have a conversation first. I think same thing. Let's understand what the challenges are with what you're doing. We can guide you and direct you or give you some thoughts, but that's what we want. We want the right fit for everybody. And, Joe's not going to refer anybody to us unless he knows we're the right fit and they're the right fit either, right?
Yep. So, and I got a good sense of
he knows who we are.
Your brand. So,
right, there you go.
Knowing you guys, I've known Emily forever. So awesome. Well, thanks for joining us and sharing that information.
Good stuff.